So we'll do the warm up. This relates directly to what we were doing yesterday. We'll see if there were any questions. And then today is just we're just kind of gonna go slow at the beginning. Not gonna kill ourselves to start. But it asks us to find the measure of each angle. So the first thing we're doing is either they are gonna be complementary or supplementary. In this case, since it's a right triangle, we say those are complementary. So we're gonna take our two angles, the 5x plus 5, and we're gonna add the 3x plus 5, so we add them together and set it equal to 90. Do a little algebra. That gives me 8x when I combine. That gives me 10. Okay, it's not too terrible. And then you just have a quick little two-step equation. 8x equals 80, you can do that in your head. X equals 10. Now remember, we kind of solve when we feel like we're done, but we're not done. We need to actually find the measures of those angles. So we're gonna take this x and plug it back in. So if I plug in 10 right here, that would give me 5 times 10 plus 5, which is 55 degrees. So that's what I expect to see labeled. And then here, if I plug in 10, 3 times 10 plus 5 would give me 35 degrees. So there we go. So complementary, supplementary, or if you see something that's a right angle or a straight angle, they're either going to add to 90 or 180, and then you're going to solve from there. Does anyone have a question with that warm up? Okay. So you're going to take out that worksheet from yesterday. Now I have to get up in the camera's face because I need to find one. Actually, I could just. If you have a calculator, I would suggest taking it out. It is going to be of use to you. I'm actually going to grab mine. Because some of this I'm definitely not doing in my head. If you don't have one yet, like I'll kind of give you the answers now. I don't want to see your phones out, so please don't get your phone out and start computing. 1, it's just a pain, and 2, you're not going to be able to use it on tests and quizzes and stuff. So try to get one if you don't have one yet. And that's that. So what happens is we measure angles with degrees. So you're probably semi-familiar with it. We talked about right angles, straight angles. We have a way that we can be a little bit more exact. So if I just say like something's 30 degrees, that's great. But if we want to be more exact, we have something called minutes and seconds. It's kind of just like a decimal. It gives you a more exact angle. Sorry, I'm breathing in masks. So the first thing at the top, I'm not going to project it, just kind of my thing going. It says there are blank minutes in 1 degree. So this is just going to take a little getting used to because it's a little different. But when you're talking about degrees, minutes, seconds, it's actually very much like time with hours, minutes, seconds. So when I say how many minutes are in a degree, it's kind of like an hour. So there are 60 minutes in 1 degree. So a lot of it, we are talking about angles, but we can kind of relate it to time, just because we're talking about a circle. And then it says there are blank seconds in 1 minute. Hey, we're talking about time. How many seconds are in a minute?
60.
Exactly, same thing. 60 seconds a minute. And then it says, therefore, there are, and then it says just blank in 1 degree. So there's 60 minutes in a degree and there's 60 seconds in a minute. There are 3,600 seconds in 1 degree. Just like if you broke it down an hour, there's 3,600 seconds in an hour. So that's just kind of basic information. If you can remember the 60 is that's great. And the 3,600 is going to come into play in a second. All right. So let's just do the fun stuff here. Like literally we're just adding. So we're not getting too crazy today. So we're either adding or subtracting. We're combining like terms. So when we see 1 tick mark, that's a minute. And if you see 2 tick marks, that's a second. So basically we're just combining things that are alike. So number 13, if you look at it, it's written horizontally. I'm a vertical writer, so if I saw number 13, I would write it like this. I kind of just line everything up. I like to write things vertically, just my brain works that way. If I line everything up, I can see what's alike, and then if I can see what's alike, I can combine them. I'm lazy, it's first period. I'm gonna grab my calculator, and I'm literally just gonna add. So I'm gonna add 29 and 46. That's gonna give me 75 minutes. I'm gonna combine the 51 and 32. That gives me 83 degrees. Okay, so you're saying, okay, I literally just added, that wasn't bad. There is a few little things about degrees, minutes, seconds. So I'm just gonna make a little note to myself, which you might wanna make just on the side of the paper. When giving an answer, your minutes and seconds should never be above 60. Should never be greater than 60. It's kind of like with time. If you said something was 75 minutes, most of the time we would just say an hour and 15 minutes. Same thing goes here. Once you get to 60, it kind of just adds on either a degree or something. So here's how I would write this final answer. I would take this and I would say, well, I don't want this to be greater than 60. So if it is greater than 60, I'm going to take 60 away. If I take 60 minutes away, 60 minutes adds 1 degree. So if I take 60 from here, I'm going to add 1 here. So my final answer would be 84 degrees, 15 minutes. So I'll kind of give you a second. We haven't done math in a long time, so the adding wasn't bad, but kind of that part's a little bit just to get used to. So just like with time, usually we don't really say if something's over 60 minutes, you just say it's an hour. So same idea here, if something's over 60 minutes or over 60 seconds, it just adds a degree. I'll do that up. Does anyone have a question with 13? It just takes a little practice. Once again, that was only the first problem. All right, so let's try another one. Ooh, next one, subtraction. We're getting crazy, guys. I'm just gonna erase this. I'll do it right here. Getting crazy. 14. So this is 90 degrees. Once again, I like to line things up vertically. It just makes more sense in my head. And I'm gonna subtract 73 degrees, 12 minutes. Okay, so you're saying a subtraction problem, woo. The problem with subtraction is you can't subtract from nothing. So see how here, there's nothing in this spot to subtract from. We need to kind of deal with that. You've done this before where you borrow, so it's just like borrowing with regular subtraction. We just have to kind of think about it. If we borrow 1 degree, so I'm going to take a degree away from here, how many minutes will that add? 60, beautiful. So it's just getting used to kind of going back and forth. So it's the same idea there, it's just kind of backwards. Anytime you're borrowing to subtract, if you take 1 from your degree, that's going to add 60 minutes. And now that I have something to subtract from, I can actually do it. So once again, I'm lazy. I'll grab my calci here. That gives me 48 minutes. 89 minus 73 is 16 degrees. And that would be my final answer. So the main goal, you're either adding or you're subtracting. We're not going to do anything crazy like multiplying or dividing with these. It's just kind of combining together. So with addition, you kind of just add. It's nothing too exciting. It's just when you get to the final answer, make sure your minutes and seconds can't be above 60. So you might have to switch things around a little bit. And for number 14, you were subtracting. But since there was nothing to subtract from, you did have to borrow. And when I borrow a degree, that gives me 60 minutes. So that's kind of the idea. We'll do a few more examples. And then we'll kind of go from there. We're not going to do our 60. What's the benefit of having an elective now? Is we have no pressure on us. We can do what we want. All right, so let's try one more, and then I'm going to have you guys try one. So I'm looking at number 15. Okay, it's a subtraction problem. Okay, that's not that bad. I just line everything up, and I'm gonna kind of go through and combine like terms. You start at the right and you kind of work your way left. So you start with seconds and then minutes and then degrees. So I look at my seconds and I say 45 minus 10. I can do that. It's 35. So it wasn't bad. So sometimes it will just be as easy as you can just combine them and you're kind of done. The issue comes in with the minutes because 18 minus 29 will give us a negative. We don't want negative minutes. So we're going to have to do some borrowing. So once again, I'm going to borrow a degree. If I borrow 1 degree, that's going to add 60 here. So remember, borrowing 1 adds 60. So now this is going to become 78. Once I have that, I can do my subtraction. That gives me 49. And then last but not least, I just do my degrees. Your degrees, you can have negative degrees, so if that ever happens, obviously there's nowhere to borrow from, that's fine. So your degree can be whatever. It's more those minutes, seconds that you're worried about. So right now, to the back, this last one shouldn't be bad. Actually, I'll help you with this out. So I'm gonna have you try 16, and then we'll kind of just see how we're feeling. If we want to practice some more, that's great. If we want to do something else, I'm down, whatever. This one, you just have to be careful with the way it's set up. This is why I like the vertical method. You have 23 degrees, you have 19 minutes, great. And then you're adding 12 degrees, but that says 17 seconds. So please don't line it up here. You gotta kind of make another column and we're gonna put the seconds there. So what I like to do is I like to put in zeros. So I'll put, there was 0 seconds here, there was 0 minutes here. So that one could have gotten a little tricky if you just weren't paying attention. So right now, to the best of your ability, if I asked you to add that, which you should be able to do without any too many issues, because there's nothing really too exciting going on in that problem. Can you please try that? And then maybe we'll just do one more on your own before we get started here. So hopefully this one was pretty quick because there actually wasn't anything like fancy going on. You didn't have to do really much work. You just kind of added. The minutes were 17. The seconds, excuse me. The minutes were 19. And then that came out to be 35. So you didn't have to borrow. You didn't have to worry about your answer being over 60. So that one was pretty basic. So let me give you one more before we do the next thing. This is kind of totally different steps. So right, can you please add 26 degrees, 12 minutes, 52 seconds. And you're going to add 13 degrees, 49 minutes and 16 seconds. So just an addition problem, nothing too crazy. The big thing for this one is when you give your answer, remember your degrees and minutes cannot be above 60 in your final answer. So can you try that one? If you need help, let me know. Once again, if you're trying to do this without a calculator, you're probably wanting to rip your eyeballs out, so please try to get one. I don't see you again until next Monday, so you got plenty of time. Obviously, if you're at home, you can use whatever you please. I don't really care. But in class, I do expect you to have a calculator. And it will make your life easier because once we get to some of the other stuff, even trying to use a phone is a big pain in the butt. So I'll give you one more minute. Oh, goodness gracious. All right, so let's check this one. We'll see how we're doing, and then you guys can kind of decide what you want to do next. Whether you want to do a few more problems as kind of a wrap up, or we have one other thing. We can either do it today or next week. It doesn't really matter. Okay. So I'm just going to start adding. I grab my calculator because I'm lazy. I'll do my seconds first. That gives me 68. So I know I'm going to have to deal with that in a second because I can't have it at 60. 12 plus 49, that gives me 61. I'm going to have to deal with that as well. And then 26 plus 13. Okay. So we said before I've written it, and hopefully you wrote it down. When we're giving a final answer, our minutes and seconds, we never want to be above 60 for those. So I'm going to kind of deal with them as I go. So I always move from right to left. So I don't want this to be above 60. So what's going to happen is if I'm going to take 60 seconds away. If I take 60 seconds away, we know that 60 seconds is equal to 1 minute. So it adds 1 there. So this ends up becoming 8. This ends up becoming now 62. And then that's 39. So now I have to deal with the minutes. We said we don't want it to be above 60. So I'm going to take 60 minutes away. If I take 60 minutes away, we said there were 60 minutes and 1 degree. So if you kind of move from right to left, anytime you take 60 away, you move 1 to the next column. So your final answer should be 40 degrees, 2 minutes and 8 seconds. Once again, it's a way to measure an angle. It just makes it more exact. So if you think about what 40 degrees is, that's just kind of narrowing in on that specific angle. So right now, would you rather just do a few of those problems as kind of a wrap up? We have about 15, I don't even know what time this class ends, I'm going to be honest, 15-ish minutes. We can try a few and kind of see how we're feeling. Or would you rather do the stuff at the bottom, which is pretty quick, it's just throwing in a calculator. It's converting these degrees, minutes, seconds into a decimal. Does anyone have a pref? Oh, we don't want to do that? Okay, you don't want to do it. That's fine, I'm done. So why don't we just try a few of these and kind of see how we're feeling. I'm also going to throw in a review problem or two from yesterday. So just as a heads up, we're going to kind of build on what we know. So why don't we do this as kind of an extended wrap up. We'll take a little bit of time, and then we'll go over it in a few. Sorry, because usually I would be like, oh, work together. I'll have to come up to the board, and now we just can do nothing ever again. So we'll just do our best to not go crazy here. Excuse me. So let me give you a few. I'm lazy, so I'm just going to give them a look. Excuse me, I'm talking too much. All right, so I'm just gonna say combine. So whether it says addition or subtraction, just pay attention. I'll set them up vertically because that's just how my brain works. So do your best. Please see if you're adding or subtracting. That will obviously make a difference. And go from there. $32 degrees. Oh, we're gonna get crazy up in here. Do two things at once. Let's do 26 degrees. 20 minutes. I'm setting this one up. We're doing two things. We're adding the first two, subtracting the second one. So you just do two things at a time. So I would add first, and then once you add, subtract that. I'm only going to give you one more. I'm not going to kill you today. Let's do one. Okay, so 4 problems. That should take you a few minutes. Whether you're adding, you're subtracting, you're kind of doing a combo. And number 4 is going back to what we did yesterday. You have to use that keyword of supplementary and understand what that means and how the angles are related. And then try to solve for that variable and go from there. If you need help, just ask. I can help you from afar if you need it. But I will give you a few minutes. This is hard for me because I actually hate when classes are quiet. So like if you're like chatting on the side, I'm like totally. It's gonna be a tough transition. Does anyone need help with anything?
Sure.
What's up?
Can I have my water over there?
Oh, yeah. I meant to mention, so for after school help, if you ever, I don't know, have questions or just need clarification. So I've decided I'm going to split it up between Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'll be here till 2:30 each day just to kind of try to give everyone an even playing field. So on Tuesday, if you're around, you can always drop by until 2:30. If you let's be honest, you just don't want to stop by because you want to go home. On Thursdays, if you have questions, for both of them, I will be virtual using just that Sherman remote nickname on Google Meet. So you can either come in person on Tuesdays or you can come virtually on Thursdays. And I'll see you. You could literally probably come virtual on Tuesdays because if you guys can leave at 1:55, half of you are probably home by 2:10. So if you ever want to stop in virtually, I will also be here Tuesdays and Thursdays. But just as a heads up, in case you ever do have a question, I am happy to help you either in class or outside of class. I'll give you about, I don't know, 2 or 3 more minutes. All right, so let's start to go over them. You can just do a quick check. This is basically like a little quick self-assessment if you're on the right track with this stuff, if you're not getting it fully as I ask. And then we'll do the other converting next week. At this point, we can do things as we please. So once again, I'm lazy, so I'll use my calculator. This gives me 80 minutes. I could have done that in my head as 142 degrees. But I know our minutes cannot be above 60 in our answer, so I'm going to take 60 minutes away, and I'm going to add a degree. So my final answer for that one would be 143 degrees, 20 minutes. Does anyone have a problem with number 1? Oh, fabulous. Number 2, you are subtracting. You can't subtract from nothing, because remember, and you can't put a 0 there because then you get a negative. So we are going to borrow. I'm going to borrow 1 degree. If I borrow 1, that gives me 60 minutes. And now I have something to subtract from. That gives me 34 minutes. And 179 minus 119, I can do 1 of these in my head, but I'm just gonna go with it. Your final answer for that one should have been 60 degrees, 34 minutes. Any problems with 2? Number 3, I'm gonna kind of just do 2 things at a time. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add these. I'll do that right here. So that shouldn't be bad. 26 plus 18, that gives me 44 degrees, 37 minutes. Remember, that's not my final answer, that's just the first 2. Now from that, I'm gonna subtract 14 degrees, 10 minutes. And that would give me 27 minutes. So that one should be 30 degrees, 27 minutes. There were 2 steps, just do 1 step at a time. Don't try to do everything at once. That's where things get a little confusing. Any problems with 3? And last but not least is what we were doing yesterday. So always either look for a keyword. Obviously, if there's like a picture, you can kind of visualize it a little better. But please know that supplementary adds to 180 degrees. So I'm going to take 10x plus 7. I'm going to add 7x plus 3 and set it equal to 180. And then just do my solving. So what's that? 17x plus 10. I'm going to do some of this in my head. If I subtract 10, I'll get 170. So x is going to equal 10. Please make sure you go back and actually plug it in. So if I plug 10 in here, it's 107. And if I plug 10 in here, is 73. And that makes sense because those 2 things add to 180 degrees. So there you go. Sorry. Close these days. All right. So that's the gist of today. Next week, what do you guys prefer for assessments? Do you want like little assessments? I feel like if we do one more thing and then have like a quiz, it's not that much information that you're feeling overwhelmed. So we'll talk about that on Monday, because you guys are kind of the leader. But just as a heads up, that might be coming soon.